Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants Hangout. My name is Joe Grabowski. I'll be your host for today. For those who don't know what Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants is all about, we're all about bringing science, adventure, exploration, and conservation into classrooms across North America and hopefully beyond. And I'm very excited for today's Hangout. We are joining the Ripley's Aquarium of Canada in Toronto, Ontario for another Google Hangout. We'll be joined by Danielle Eisner and David Fraser. Today we're meeting the zebra sharks and we're going to watch them do a little bit of their training. It's called Tactile Desensitization training. So the goal is to reduce stress of physical handling required as part of veterinary procedures. So Danielle, let me turn your microphone on. We're getting a great view of the sharks swimming around and doing their thing. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well today, Joe. So today we have our awesome, thanks Kevin. We have our awesome zebra sharks here and the other reef sharks that are in this exhibit. If you ever do come to visit our aquarium, you can actually go inside this exhibit and crawl through the tunnel, which is in the middle. And it's really hard to see because the jets are on right now, but I'm able to see people crawl through right now, but they can't see me. So this is the top of it, and we have two zebra sharks in here that are both girls. They're pretty big. They're about 8 feet long, and their names are Biggie and Drew. And they're the yellowish sharks that swim around. This one here's a black tip reef shark, and then the little one there, that's the big yellow one is the zebra shark. The little one is called a white spotted bamboo shark, and it's hiding underneath these baskets. And the baskets happen to be filled with eggs. So we're just actually waiting on Dave to come by. So we have some little baby sharks down here. These are baby white spotted bamboo sharks. They have babies really easily, so here at the aquarium, they go off to other places, like other aquariums, to grow up because we have already too many. And then these egg cases over here, which are quite a bit bigger, if I can get a good angle on them, these are from zebra sharks. And as you remember, I said both of our zebra sharks are girls, but they can do something really cool, which is they can have babies anyway, even though there aren't any males in the tank. So we're hoping that at some point we might get a baby from them, but so far we haven't had any luck. So zebra sharks are amazing. They are in the group called carpet sharks. So they happen to look a lot like they have a carpet pattern to them, and they have really small jaws. So zebra sharks like to eat things that live off the bottom. So in general, in the wild, they'll eat anything small enough to fit in their mouth that's meat, but usually that's different types of shellfish, which includes shrimp and snails, and they will also eat smaller fish. And usually here we feed them soft-shell crab and larger fish chopped into smaller bits for their mouths. And they don't usually get shrimp because it's a little harder to feed them the way that we feed them, but we can also feed them that. You'll see them come around. They're actually very friendly and they feel really rough. So if you ever get a chance to touch a shark, sharks are pretty rough animals. They have special scales on the outside of their body, which allows them to swim without creating ripples, which you can see when the zebra sharks swim by. And they can swim very smoothly through the water so they can sneak up on their food. And these wonderful animals, the little scales on them are not only helpful for them swimming through the water, but also allows them to protect themselves from bite marks. So if another shark comes by and bites their fin, then they won't lose any of their fin. It'll just feel uncomfortable. Dave's here! Wait, we started. That's good. All right, so Dave's here and he's gonna deal with our ladies, the zebra sharks. When they come by, you can actually see that they have this awesome shape to their tail. And instead of having the regular fork shape to their tail like a typical shark does, they have a more rounded shape, which actually allows them to swim in smaller, more complex areas like a coral reef. So what Dave's trying to do here is he is doing tactile desensitization. So he's handling our sharks a lot more. I already did that. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, so Dave's going to show us the babies up close because he knows how to hold them and handle them. They're really tiny and they're adorable. And sometimes they escape out of their little baskets that we have them in. And we have to catch them. So these are white-spotted bamboo sharks. If you ever come and visit us, we have lots of them here, and some of them are in our Shark Touch exhibit. And they're super cute and tiny. Oh, there. That was awesome. And they're actually way darker when they're babies than when they're older. And this type of shark is an egg-laying shark. So all of these sharks come from eggs instead of being born live like a human. And then these eggs here, Dave's going to bring out one. These are from zebra sharks. And you can see they're huge compared to Dave's hands. So maybe they'll be a baby, but it might not happen. We'll show them again at the end. Yeah. So as I was saying before, Dave here is doing our tactile desensitization. So he's very close with these sharks, and he is going to actually do something really cool. I'm not going to tell you until it actually happens, but he ends up having a really close relationship with them, and he can touch them. So he'll feed them, and then they'll come close and they will be able to be comfortable with them, so that when we have the vet come by, we can do things like blood draws, and we can do things like give them close checkups and make sure that they're not getting anything invasive done, and also making sure that the animals are not being stressed out during their time here, especially when they're getting a checkup. So hopefully this time it will work. Dave's actually trying to flip the sharks over. It looks like that shark didn't want to have any of that, but they will be flipping. Maybe. Oh, there we go. So Dave is going to feed them while they're upside down to give them positive reinforcement, so the animals are able to be comfortable with being flipped over, and they'll be happy that they're getting the reward of food. So it looks like today they are getting a lot of capelin. Yeah, capelin is this small kind of stinky fish. It's not really the prized food of a lot of our animals here, especially the stingrays don't really like it, but these sharks seem to like it enough to flip over for Dave, which is really awesome. Other than the zebra sharks in this exhibit and the white-spotted bamboo sharks that I mentioned earlier, we have some black-tip reef sharks, some white-tip reef sharks, and a couple of wobegons. And it is unlikely we will see the wobegons during a feeding like this. They stay at the bottom. So I apologize for all of the coughing. I have an awful cold. But it is really cool to see the sharks flip over. And you can see their patterning really well, especially when they're slightly under the water. Oh, there's the Epaulette shark. So we only have one Epaulette in here, and he's kind of hard to see from the rest, but he's got the giant black dots on the top. Dave's pointing to him right now. He's my favorite shark in here. He's super cool. And he can walk on his fins really well. So all of the sharks in here live in a coral reef type habitat, which is very complex, so they have to swim through small areas. And most often they're going to be eating shellfish and small fish, and they have to swim in very complex movement patterns. So if you missed it before, our sharks' names are Biggie and Drew, and they are both girls. Well, they're upside down is the easiest way to tell them apart, but because they're both girls, that's easy enough as it is. But boy sharks have two extra things coming off their pelvic fins, and those are called claspers. And so you can easily tell them apart whenever you go to an aquarium. And girls don't have those. So these zebra sharks, as you can see, they have wonderful patterns on them. The zebra sharks have spots when they're older, but when they're young, they actually have stripes, and it helps them with their camouflage. So here, they're known as zebra sharks, but in Australia, where they are natively found, sharks, because of their spots when they're older. here they got the name for the juveniles, stripe pattern. And ours are not, ours are full grown to what they're going to get, but in general, they can get bigger than this, so they can get to up to 10 to 12 feet long, which is a really large animal. And they have a very powerful tail, which is actually longer than their whole body, which allows them to swim really far, really fast. But they spend most of their time, especially during the daytime, staying still, waiting for food to come by, because they're nocturnal. And they're lazy hunters, so they wait for food to come by and jump out at it. So these are not the only sharks we have at the aquarium. We have lots of other sharks, mainly a lot of the ones in our dangerous lagoon, which are the big ones. These ones look a little bit more docile because you can't actually see their teeth. Their teeth are not blunt, but they're oriented in a way that is not for slicing, but for crushing. So they do have pointy teeth, but they're super tiny. And they do lose them all the time like other sharks, but they're hard to find because they're super small. But it's good for what they like to eat. And these sharks are a really great addition to have at an aquarium because they do reproduce pretty easily, which is why we only have girl sharks here. And there have been a lot of sharks, especially zebra sharks and white-spotted bamboo sharks, that have been bred in captivity. So the good news is a lot of these sharks that we have here are not from the wild. So we're doing a great job here, especially learning more about the reproduction. As you can see, the sharks are very calm when they are being flipped over, and they are very happy to get the reward of food. So that when the vet comes and they have to do a blood draw or they have to give them an ultrasound, this is the easiest way to do so. And it also means that they're always going to be comfortable while being handled, especially by Dave, who does this a lot.
All right, that's awesome, Danielle. Thank you so much. Are you ready to meet some of the classrooms for some questions?
Yeah, I'm ready to meet classrooms questions.
All right, excellent. So classrooms, what we'll do is I'll introduce each class, and if you want to send someone up for one question to start, and then we'll see how our time's looking to see if we can pop back in for a bonus question. So let's go to our first class. We have Mrs. King's grade 6s joining us from Canada, Ontario. Let me turn your microphone on.
Why are they called zebra sharks?
I think the question was, why are they called zebra sharks?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so zebra sharks, they got their name because when they're young, they are really stripy. And then when they get older, they actually lose their stripe pattern, and then they develop these spots that we actually are really comfortable with seeing on them. Which is why in Australia, where they're natively from, they are called leopard sharks. Although there is another shark called a leopard shark, so it gets really confusing. But here in North America, we call them zebra sharks because of what they look like when they were young.
All right, let's meet our next classroom. So Mr. Wright's grade 6-7s are joining us from Sarnia, Ontario. Let me turn your microphone on. There you go.
We had one question the student's going to ask, okay? Thanks a lot. He asked, what type of fish do the zebra sharks usually eat?
What type of fish do the zebra sharks usually eat? So today they're eating capelin, which is this tiny little fish, but they also eat mahi-mahi, which is also known as dolphin fish, and that's what a lot of our animals eat. But in the wild, they'll eat anything small, so more often than not, they're eating shellfish in the wild. Because it's easier, it's better for their bodies to eat that, and they don't have to catch it. They would rather just have something that's slower, like a shellfish, than go after something fast, like a fish. Even though they are really good swimmers, they don't want to waste energy on something they might not be able to eat. And their teeth are not meant for grabbing things that are swimming away, they're meant for crushing hard stuff. But here it's a little bit easier, so we can feed them any type of fish, and we usually end up feeding them mahi-mahi and capelin, but we also have in stock for them bonito and herring and probably about it. We also have clam, but they probably wouldn't like it. Our stingrays don't even really like the clam.
All right, sounds like a good menu. Mr. Richards' class from Amherst View, Ontario. They're a grade 6-7 classroom. Let me turn your microphone on. There you go.
Go ahead,
Um, how long do they live?
That's a good question. So how long do they live? Most sharks, they live for around 30 years, with a little bit of give or take either way. And that's based on how long they live for in captivity. We know very little about how long they live in the wild. So it's easy to tell how long they live in captivity, especially if they were born at a facility, like at an aquarium. You just know their birthday and then you just subtract it later. However, if they were caught in the wild, it's very hard to tell how old they were when they were caught. So you can estimate just based on their size and their maturity level, but we really don't ever know. So most often it's around 30 years, but they get the best possible life here. No predators, they get the right amount of food they need and the right vitamins they need, and they're always safe from fishing pressures and other things that humans might have as a negative impact on their environment. So we fish, we also destroy their habitats, and we add garbage into the water, and all of that is very bad for the animals. But thankfully here they do live an ideal life. For the best and how long they do survive here, obviously no animal does live forever. Their bodies do end up not working after a while, but usually is longer in a captive environment than in the wild.
All right, thank you for the question. Our next group is joining us from Anaheim, California. This is Flora's group. Let me turn your microphone on. You can go ahead with the question.
Hi, my name is Emily. What are the zebra's predators?
What are the zebras, sharks, predators, right? So these animals, they are usually predated on by larger sharks because larger sharks usually end up eating smaller sharks, especially the great white and the bull shark and the tiger shark, which are all big on eating other sharks, and that's about it. And then there's humans. So thankfully, the zebra shark is actually really well protected in its native range in Australia, but when you get farther out into international waters, they are not as well protected. And shark finning is an awful thing that a lot of cultures do. It's also illegal in a lot of areas, and it means that they take the fins off the animal and sell it to places that make shark fin soup, and that's not so great for these animals. And they're also accidentally caught in fishing nets as bycatch, which means that they might not survive that ordeal. Thankfully, these sharks do have a hole near their eye called a spiracle, which is like a gill slit, and that allows them to breathe while staying still. So they could be brought up and then released back into the water and still survive, but it's still not the best thing for an animal to be brought out of the water without being known that they're going to do that, and also with people who are not really intending on helping them survive. So you can easily help out and eat sustainably. If you're in Canada, you can use OceanWise, and you can download that onto your phones or just learn more of it on the website. And if you're in the United States, you can use Sea Choice, which is spelled SEA, and that helps find out which foods we should get from the ocean so that we do not take out too much, and we always make sure that they are being safe and healthy for sharks, other fish, and turtles and dolphins.
All right, so our next classroom is joining us from Calgary, Alberta. They're a grade 4 classroom with Mrs. Slaney. And let me turn your microphone on. We're ready.
Boy sharks different colors from the girl sharks?
I didn't really catch that.
Are the girl sharks different colors from the boy sharks?
No, not usually. Sharks are pretty cool in that they actually, most often, the females and males look pretty much the same, except for one identification feature. So if you ever go to an aquarium and you get to look at the undersides of the sharks, so maybe you're on a moving pathway, or they have a tank where you can just see the bottoms of them, look at the bottom, and then you look to the pelvic fins. So the front fins that Dave is grabbing right now, those are the pectoral fins. The ones behind them are the pelvic fins on the bottom. The male sharks have a little extra piece. It looks like a tiny finger. And those ones, those are the boys, and then the females don't have the finger thing. So that's the easy way to tell them apart. And it says nothing to do with their color. The coloration of sharks is usually dependent on their genetics. So whatever their parents passed on to them, and a little bit of the environment. So all of these white-spotted bamboo sharks, you can see, are all varying different shades of brown, and that's a lot based on their parentage.
All right, that's a great question. And our final group joining us is from Kingston, Ontario, grade 5-6 class with Mrs. McLaughlin. Let me turn your microphone on. There you go.
How much do the zebra sharks weigh?
Oh, that's a good question. How much do the zebra sharks weigh? I'm actually going to have to ask Dave this question. Do you know, how much do they weigh?
They weigh quite a bit less than people think. So these guys weigh 70 to 90 pounds. They haven't actually been weighed. So the ultimate end goal of their training is to get to the point where we can lift them out of the water. So we get away.
So they weigh between 70 and 90 pounds, which is not as much as you would probably expect these sharks to weigh, as they are really large, and they're longer than I am tall, and they weigh less than me. However, they haven't been weighed in a while. So usually most of our animals, because they live underwater, are not lifted out to measure how much they weigh on a regular basis, because we don't want them to be out of water for too long. So the end goal of this training, where they're being handled all the time, is to actually get them to be lifted out of the water so we can figure out how much they weigh. And that is a good way for us to tell how healthy they are, and also give us a better idea of how much we should feed them, because all of our animals are fed a portion of their body weight.
All right, and Danielle, the reason I'm guessing why they're so big but weigh a little less is the cartilage. Cartilage
Yeah.
being as heavy as bone.
Cartilage is a very good reason, and yes, you're correct. Bone is very heavy and cartilage is light.
All right, and Danielle, if we have anyone out there who's curious or wondering how could they maybe get into marine biology and potentially work in an aquarium environment like you do, what kind of advice would you have for them?
Well, if you're young and you're able to, do a field course. There's some awesome ones that you can do when you're young, and you can go to the coast, or you can be an intern, volunteer as much as you can, and volunteering takes you a long way. And I know it's hard because money is such a good thing to get sometimes, but does do a lot. And if you want to work in an aquarium setting, getting your dive certification is one of the best things you can do, and it really opens a lot of doors. And you can start doing that at around 12 years old. And then the other thing is just, I know it's hard and I know it's a lot of school, but it's really rewarding when you finally get to the end goal. Like working with the animals is amazing, and going into school, like Dave and I both went to the same school. We went to the University of Guelph for marine and freshwater biology, but there's many other programs out there, especially in the United States. And any of the biologies, really, you can end up working at an aquarium. So you don't have to specifically want to work with underwater animals. It just really helps if you have experience in order to work with them.
All right, great points, and I am 100% with you on the diving certification. I've been diving for 10 years now, and it is by far my favorite thing to go out and do, to explore a world that not a lot of people get to check out. All right, so I think we can probably squeeze in maybe 2 more questions. If I see somebody come up to the camera, I'll keep an eye out, and I'll make sure that I can grab 2 more from the class. It looks like I see someone already. Mrs. King's class, let me turn your mic on.
What do you like most about zebra sharks?
That's a good question. What do I like most about zebra sharks? One of my favorite things about them is just the way that they're shaped. They're very streamlined. You can actually see there's like lines on the side of their body. And those actually allow them to swim through the water really smoothly. And their color is really unique for a shark. Very few sharks are yellow, which I find is really cool. I'm going to ask Dave what his favorite thing is. Dave, what's your favorite thing about zebra sharks?
Those zebra sharks, that they reproduce asexually.
He says that they can reproduce without a male partner, which is a really amazing thing, and only a handful of sharks can actually do that, and we're still really not sure how it works. But you guys might be able to look into that later. Just so that you know, you can only tell if a shark has reproduced in that way if you get the genetics from the baby that's born later. They won't look any different, and it's such a rare thing to occur, and there's a lot of genetic problems that might happen to that baby. So if it does happen, it's really novel and amazing, and hopefully it will happen here, but if it doesn't, that's just fine as well.
All right. I see two more faces at the camera, so maybe we'll squeeze in two questions, one from Mrs. Flores' class, and then one from Mr. Richards' class. So let's go to Anaheim first. Your microphone's on.
Hi, my name is Kimberly. Have you ever saved a zebra shark?
I didn't quite catch that.
Have you ever saved a zebra shark?
Have we ever saved one? Actually, both of these zebra sharks are from other aquariums, so they're not from the wild. But in general, a lot of our animals here, if they are from the wild, we try to get them in the safest way possible. And some of them are rescues. It's just, we're a really inland aquarium. Toronto is next to a lake, but it's not really next to the ocean. So if we're trying to save an animal, it's most likely not one from the ocean. But some of our animals were initially brought into captivity as a rescue, and then we got them later on when we were opening. So both of our sea turtles are rescues, and we have a couple stingrays that are rescues as well. However, most of them are born in an aquarium setting, and some of them are taken from the wild. If they are taken from the wild, we make sure that they are the right length, the right weight, and the right gender, so that we're not negatively affecting the animals in the wild, and we never use chemicals, and most often we hand catch our animals, with the exception of sharks, which are caught by long lining.
All right. And one final question for Mr. Richards' class. I'll turn your microphone on.
How big does a zebra shark get?
All right, how big do the zebra sharks get? Well, ours are around 8 feet, and they can get to 10 to 12 feet long, which is pretty large for a shark. That's the max, yeah. They're really not the largest of the sharks out there, but they are really large in general as sharks, because there are a lot of sharks that you probably have heard of that are pretty big, but most of the sharks are much smaller than this. And these ones are as big as they're going to get.
All right. Well, first of all, boys and girls, thank you so much for hanging out today and for the great questions. And David and Danielle, as always, thank you so much for taking us behind the scenes at Ripley's and showing us some of the amazing creatures. I'm very excited for our hangouts next month. They're always a ton of fun. So thanks so much for teaching us about the zebra sharks, as well as showing us a little bit of the work that goes on at the aquarium.
Yeah. Thank you for having us again.
All right. Well, before we sign off, I'm going to turn all the microphones on, let the classroom say goodbye and thank you, and then we'll log off for today. So classrooms, nice and loud, a goodbye and thank you to Dave and Danielle, and maybe the sharks will hear it too. Here we go. All right. Well, again, thank you everybody for a great hangout. Special thank you to the sharks for being so cooperative, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.